This video doesn't make sense on so many levels. These two guitars are very different. Perhaps the biggest similarity between the two is the fact that they are both guitars. But lame jokes aside, they both have mahogany necks, rosewood fingerboards and spruce tops. Other than that, everything else is really different. Obviously the body size, the shape, the bracing, even the sunburst is different, and by that I also mean the finish, the lacquer on the guitars. So they are very different, yet I feel there is still value in making this comparison. And of course it might not be anything new on the internet, but I want to find out for myself what are the differences between one of the smallest body and one of the largest body acoustic guitars. Because you know there's a fair consensus out there that large body J200 style guitars are the best for strumming, and then small body WL guitars are best for finger picking. And there's a lot of truth to that. I won't change that of course in this video, so I think it is definitely true. I just want to find out for myself how does it fare with songs and tunes that I like to play. Because if you know my channel, I usually do finger picking stuff, and this is why for the last I guess more than 6 years this Waterloo WL14 is my main acoustic guitars. I specifically bought it because I wanted a replica of the 30s, budget guitars that the original bluesmen were playing. And the Waterloo made by Collings is an amazing, also high-end example of that. When I bought it, I had the opportunity to try it and compare it with a couple of Martins and Gibsons in this category, but I definitely like the Waterloo. In fact, Slim at Fuller's Guitars in Houston turned me on to the Waterloos. I picked them up, started playing on them, and I just fell in love. They are also handmade in Austin, which is again I think a really cool story. And I haven't said that, but the most important thing is they are leather braced. There are X-braced versions as well. I compared the two, and I definitely like the leather braced as well because that's the period correct, so it just has that sound. Now on the other hand, like I said, I wanted to get the polar opposite of the Waterloo. I want to go for a J200. I again tried a bunch of guitars recently in the last couple of years, and I didn't want to go for a Dreadnought, which is kind of a middle road. I wanted to get the king of acoustic guitars or king of flat tops, but the J200 is extremely crazy expensive, and I don't have the money for that. There are cheaper alternatives, but they don't have the maple back and sides. But the J185 does have that. It is also a lot of money, arguable if I have money for that, but I'm not going to be a hypocrite sitting here in front of a bunch of guitars and saying I don't have the money for this. I'm saying that I shouldn't spend my money on this, as I also have a wife and kids. But anyway, I'm still able to feed them. The point is, these J185s are kind of a sleeper in the acoustic community, but they are said to be one of the most versatile guitars because they have a little bit more mid-range than the J200, so they are still amazing for strumming, but it has some projection for finger picking as well. So this is one of the things I want to find out in this video: how much of an all-rounder the J185 is, how does it compare to my Waterloo. Maybe there are already videos out there. I'm sure I have actually seen very good videos of the J185 versus the J200. So again, I'm not thinking I'm contributing anything new to the internet. I just want to find it out for myself, and hopefully it will be useful for you, or maybe, I don't know, a little bit even fun. So let me know what you think. We'll get into the weeds with a lot of sound samples, and I will share my comments and maybe some narrative across the sound samples. So yeah, let's get into it. to get the obvious out of the way, chords definitely sound much nicer on the J185. It's full, round, smooth, the whole package just sounds amazing. On the other hand, the Waterloo's mid-range makes it a little bit too boxy for my taste, but this mid-range will come in handy when playing Western swing style rhythm. For these shell voicings or Freddie Green style, voicings that's very customary to play in Western swing music, I think the Waterloo is just a little bit better because it's more punchy, again because of that mid-range, and the J185 also sounded very nice. So I think this one is it's closer, but if I had to pick one, I think just the Waterloo is a little bit more punchy. Now let's see how the two guitars handle some Carter style playing. The interesting thing about Carter style is it mixes chords and melodies in a unique way, because you play those melodies on lower strings in lower registers. They are not a bass line, but they are melodies in sort of a boom-chick rhythmic pattern. Now, the latter, these lower register melodies, I think sound a little bit nicer on the Waterloo because it's a little bit drier, there's more note separation, those melody notes pop a little bit better, but the sacrifice is that the chords are also a little bit dry and a little bit boxy. On the J185, I think the chords are very lush, and this is the key why I prefer it, why those melody notes are more warm, not as dry. So all in all, I think it's definitely a point for the J185 because it overall sounds a little bit rounder, more wholesome. So let's see a little bit more and just a little bit more bluegrass playing. So in general, because of the Waterloo's mid-range, single notes are popping a little bit better. They are more present in a mix. So sort of, think of it sort of like playing a tweed amp with that sweet mid-range. Having said that, I still kind of feel that the J185 with its warmer, bloomier tone sounds really nice. For bluegrass, I think it's probably more of a traditional tone, maybe closer to a dreadnought. Once again, or maybe I'm not sure if I said it already, but this whole video would make much more sense if I also had a dreadnought, because then I could compare. But in lieu of that, I think I could I could play it on any of the guitars. I would maybe call this a draw. But let's finally get to finger picking, and for that I selected a tune which is an original song of mine, because it has basically two types, or not necessarily two different vibes of finger picking, maybe requiring a little bit different sound from your guitar. If you like this song, it's called Momentary Fame, and you can listen to it on Spotify, Apple Music, practically everywhere else. You can even check out the video we shot in Sedona, Arizona on this YouTube channel, and you'll find a link somewhere. But the reason I'm using this song of mine is the intro has a different atmosphere than the verse. So I start a song with a more of a ragtime, rag-picky sort of vibe or style that requires the dryness and the presentness of the Waterloo. But then when I transition to the D chord for the verse, I let notes and even the first string, E string, ring out. And for that, the softness of the J185 is, beautiful. So those are kind of the main differences between the two guitars in general. The Waterloo is really strong in the mid-range, it's punchy, it's present, it's a little bit more aggressive in a way, with nice note separation, and maybe even a little bit more high-end, while the J185 is warm, lush, I think. It's rounder, and I might even say that it has a wider sonic spectrum, but I think what's more important is that it's more even across the sonic spectrum. It's really, the first time I picked up the J185 and started playing on it, it kind of felt like a classical instrument, or piano, or cello, or something like that. It really resonated nicely across all the frets, all the strings, so it's very even sounding. It doesn't have as much mid-range, and sometimes I think the top end is not strong enough, not as assertive as the Waterloo, but it's just beautiful. Blues is kind of a subgenre of fingerpicking, but it's way more soulful than, rag picking, for example. Sounds different too, because there are no thumb picks. You play it with your finger usually, and the flash of your thumb makes the sound of those low strings come out differently. Now, Waterloo is obviously the main choice for fingerpicking because Bill Collins set out to replicate the sound of the 20s and 30s catalog guitars, those cheap guitars that the bluesmen were using at the time. The original bluesmen who basically came up with blues, most of the songs and licks we are playing today, because they didn't have money for the high-end Gibsons, at least not at that point. But later, those who survived and continued came back to blues essentially in the 60s at the blues revival. Now they started using bigger body acoustic guitars. Reverend Gary Davis, for example, I think was playing J200s. I don't know if the reason was that they preferred the sound because they finally had options, or simply they just wanted to finally get those guitars because now they had the money for them. So I don't know that. Who's to say? But the point is, both guitars have, I think, a legitimate claim to be played blues on, and of course, even if they weren't, you don't need to pay attention to that, so just use what you would like to use. I personally prefer the Waterloo because that's more in your face tonal characteristics, but the J185 also sounds very nice. It's nicer in a way, it's warmer and a little bit more colorful. To me, that's not necessarily something I'm looking for finger picking, and therefore my overall summary or assessment of the comparison is that I will definitely keep the Waterloo as my main guitar for finger picking, but I also need the J185 because it's an amazing complement to the guitar. So I think the better question is, do the two guitars complement each other? I think they do nicely. Of course, for monetary reasons, it's often, the choice is often required. I leave it up to you. Unfortunately, I don't have to make that choice. If I had to, I think I would stick with the Waterloo, but I am interested in your opinion. Which one would you pick? Now, there was another question throughout this whole video, or I wanted to answer with this video, is how versatile the J185 is. Is it a really good all-rounder? I think definitely the answer is yes. So again, hopefully you're not just taking my word, but listening to the sound samples, hopefully you're on the same conclusion. So again, let me know if you agree in the comment section. Thank you for checking out this video, which gotten pretty long, but now I think there's a little bit more balance between the playing and the talking. So thank you for checking out this video, and hopefully see you in the next one.